As a kid, I loved make-believe. I loved to dress up in costume. So many of these fantasies were inspired by the music I heard, the stories that were read to me, and the images I saw on television and in the movies. I remember the very first thing I ever saw on television. The image was that of a cowboy galloping across some sunny landscape among barren rocks and scrubby bushes. He was firing his gun. You could hear the crisp hoofbeats on the dusty trail. When I rode my bike, I was that cowboy galloping through this imaginary land. Daydreaming became one of my most treasured pastimes. I have a distinct memory of being in my first grade class on a cold, winter gray day, sitting there looking out the window, watching the snow drift down against gray skies and bleak-looking trees. And as I sat there, I could close my eyes, and I could imagine this world of fantasy that I saw in the movies. This world of clear, sunny skies, rocky landscapes, scrubby bushes, and dusty trails where the cowboys rode. It was a land of heroes and heroic deeds, that faraway place where all the drama in a boy's imagination actually took place. Where rocket men flew, where spaceships took off and landed, where countless fights, chases, explosions, and action had taken place in the B-movies, the serials, and many a feature film. This was a land where dreams came true and good always triumphed over evil. It was a fantasy world, and I saw it over and over and over. One of the most outstanding images to me as a child was that of the opening of the Lone Ranger television show.
With the speed of light, a cloud of dust, and a hearty hi-yo Silver, the Lone Ranger.
The opening of that show was so exciting. I looked forward to it every week, and it was just that music and that imagery of the horse and the rocks, which just inspired me and took me off into this fantasy world of daydreams and heroes and make-believe.
Hi-yo Silver, hoy!
With his faithful Indian companion Tonto, the daring and resourceful masked rider of the plains led the fight for law and order in the early West. Return with us now to those thrilling days of yesteryear. The Lone Ranger rides again.
As I grew older, I always reserved a private place in my heart for this faraway imaginary world of heroes. I grew up in a safe and secure world. my mind was free to indulge in all the healthy fantasies of childhood. In the movies, I experienced genuine thrills. The heroes truly did brave deeds. They would literally leap into action to conquer evil. And more than that, they respected me. They smiled and waved and reassured us that they would be there to protect us and guarantee justice. And they were righteous men in speech and deed. These were definitely not the heroes of today. There came a day when I stopped just daydreaming about what I saw in the movies and took action. Inspired by the heroes we loved, my friends and I borrowed my father's home movie camera. At first, it was just backyard antics. It was special fun to put on costumes and play war and be a superhero. Slowly, we picked up confidence and passion to tell stories, to create more impressive make-believe that would rival real entertainment. We filmed a serial inspired by Flash Gordon, spy dramas, horror films, pie fights. But it was adventure that appealed to me the most. Once we could drive, we created a Batmobile. Our biggest and most elaborate project was a World War I aviation drama. I found that movie making was a great excuse for not having to grow up. The thrills that I felt I could now begin to share with an audience. And it all had begun with those daydreams of the fantasy land of the movies. Years later, I moved to Los Angeles as a film student. But in the back of my mind was a search for this fantasy land that I had seen in the movies, because somehow I knew it must exist. And in particular, I really wanted to somehow find the Lone Ranger rock. In 1975, I went to a dinner banquet of retired movie actors from B Pictures and serials, and I sat with Billy Benedict. He had been in many of the Republic serials, and even in the Lone Ranger television series.
So it's you. Now go on, beat it back to camp, will you? Go on, beat it. Oh, okay. That's the way you feel about it. But stop your chattering, will you?
So I asked him, where were these films shot? Where is the location where I could find these rocks? And he said, you want to go to the Iverson Ranch. Now, the Iverson Ranch was a privately owned piece of property about 25 miles northwest of Los Angeles. I contacted Edwin Iverson, and he invited me to come out and see this fantasy ranch. So in February 1975, Peg and I drove out to this location and met Edwin Iverson. We drove up a dusty road and parked. And as we got out and looked around, looked at the horizon, the profile of the hills, the rocks, the trees, and the shrubs, it all looked amazingly familiar. I couldn't quite place it, but there was a tremendous sense of déjà vu. We hiked up over a ridge and stood looking down across a gully. And there was the Lone Ranger Rock. But I learned that there were many other spots in this ranch that had a great deal of history behind them. There was the Nyoka Cliff, so called because it had featured prominently in the serial Perils of Nyoka. There was the Garden of the Gods, one of the most picturesque spots on the ranch, which looked so familiar, and I realized in looking at it that this is where the Lone Ranger rode through at the end of every episode.
Be with the Lone Ranger and Tonto same time next week for new dangers in another thrill-packed adventure when the Lone Ranger rides again.
Edwin pointed out that the ranch had been used in hundreds of movies, perhaps thousands, and had been used as a movie location since about the time of World War I.
The American film industry was born on the East Coast, but around 1912 it began to move west, lured by year-round sunny weather and a vast palette of natural settings. One of the first filmmakers to come was director D.W. Griffith, in search of a landscape to portray the Holy Land. He found it in the sandstone outcroppings near Chatsworth, California, just a short journey from Los Angeles. Producers liked this spot, for you could exploit the picturesque setting, but not be so far from town to require the expense of keeping the cast and crew overnight on location. Not long after Griffith came the great comic genius Buster Keaton, seen here with the Garden of the Gods in the background. This is one of the earliest surviving records of filmmaking on the Iverson property. Keaton shot several films directly on the ranch, which was rented out to film companies for just a modest daily fee. Across the valley in the background can be glimpsed perhaps the very first appearance of the Lone Ranger Rock, 25 years before Clayton Moore would gallop up to it on silver. Throughout the silent era, the ranch played host to a parade of filmmakers. Shot in primitive two-strip Technicolor, this scene from the original Ben-Hur shows Christ delivering his Sermon on the Mount. Not in Israel, of course, but if you look carefully, at the very base of Lone Ranger Rock. Of all the films in the silent era, no film gave higher status to Garden of the Gods than the special effects spectacle of Noah's Ark. For through the magic of trick photography, the Ark finally came to rest not atop Mount Ararat, but straddling those increasingly familiar blocks of stone at Iverson. As the movies went from the silence to sound, filmmakers continued to come to these rocks. Despite the great variety of films, from biblical epic to slapstick comedy, it evolved that one genre of film would permanently be associated with Iverson's sandstone wilderness. It was a type of film that is gone today and nearly forgotten. But for 50 years, it was the staple of Hollywood action movies and the tangible evidence of a unique American mythology. This was a mythology that brought countless thrills to 3 generations of filmgoers around the world. It was known as the B-Western. The shootout, the chase among the rocks, and that final moment when the cowboy hero executes a bulldog leap which tumbles the villain down that sandy bluff, imprinted in our subconscious the image of the Iverson Ranch as the world of the movie Western, the world of that mythology.
The availability of so many of these films now on video, and the technology of video, which allows you to freeze frame an image, run it back and forth many times and study it, run it slow, whatever. Having those capabilities allows you to analyze these films, and you begin to see that indeed the Iverson Ranch has been used in hundreds of movies and shows.
It fascinates me to study the film record and discover just how much Hollywood history took place along the convoluted trails and in the rocks and gullies of Iverson. It's a fun way to review our movie heritage. All it takes is a willingness to let the eyes go forth among the movie shadows of the past. Lone Ranger Rock is a great place to start this journey down memory trail. Clayton Moore played the Lone Ranger, but he actually had been seen with this pillar of rock years before he donned the mask. He was the young hero in Republic's Perils of Nyoka, the granddaddy of the Indiana Jones films.
Larry, they've captured Father.
We've got to help him. Let's get to our horses.
Republic Pictures probably came to the ranch more often than any other film producer. In 1936, they came to Iverson to shoot their first serial. If you looked carefully, you saw the Lone Ranger rock behind the flying Batman. It was the first of 66 cliffhangers to be created by the studio over the next 20 years. Most of them had scenes created at the ranch. One of my favorite serials shot at the ranch is Zorro's Fighting Legion. Zorro was played by Reed Hadley. Never, perhaps, was a hero endowed with a voice that spoke with such authority.
Juarez's army is no condition to control a rebellion now.
Those munitions can't be very far away. Couldn't we spread out and search for them?
No, searching every cave and ravine would take days. We'll have to force them out into the open.
Stand still. The execution will come later.
Zorro, like most Republic heroes, often rode through the shadow of Lone Ranger Rock.
You wait here, fellow.
Ironically, the Lone Ranger was not the first hero to rear his horse up in front of Lone Ranger Rock. That distinction goes to a most unlikely cowboy actor, right in the film's opening credits. The bold casting of James Cagney in a Western was surpassed only by that of the villain, archetype urban gangster Humphrey Bogart.
Get cover, boy!
But the film has numerous glimpses of the Lone Ranger icon. I suppose one could rename this pillar the Cagney Rock, but that just wouldn't feel right. The honor has to go to the Lone Ranger. Venturing out from the Lone Ranger Rock and up this road, other shadows of movie history begin to appear. Along this trail, the British Army once stood ready to attack. The film was Wee Willie Winkie, starring Shirley Temple. Take note of the large boulder looming over the army from the ledge above. The natives are trying to pry it loose to crush the British general, played by British character actor C. Aubrey Smith. This boulder, dubbed Three Ages Rock, has quite a cinematic history. It made its debut in 1923 as the spot where Buster Keaton courted a rather unique cave woman. This candid photo was taken during a rehearsal for the scene you just saw, and gives a good view of the northwest face of Three Ages Rock. Keaton was a gifted stuntman, and it was typical in a day's work for him to hurl himself blindly backwards off a rock and into a net held by his crew. Three Ages Rock was high up and set against a picturesque background vista of cliffs and mountains. Filmmakers again and again over the years would discover this block of stone. Here, Three Ages Rock provides cover for a scout of the 7th Cavalry. In the distance, the Indians are staging a powwow in the Garden of the Gods.
What are the blighters doing? Playing Ring Around the Rosie?
That dirty moth eating. The signal.
Look carefully, and Three Ages Rock appears over and over again as a backdrop for a broad variety of movie drama.
You ain't going down there.
My favorite appearance of this boulder comes at the end of the very first Johnny Weissmuller Tarzan epic, when Johnny, Marina Sullivan, and Cheetah climb along the entire length of its base and end up standing squarely atop Three Ages Rock. Going back to the British Army in Wee Willie Winkie and looking in the opposite direction from Three Ages Rock, we are confronted with another rocky icon of cinema, the notorious Nyoka Cliff. One way to recognize it is to spot that lone tree silhouetted against the sky and the wooden bridge spanning the gap atop the escarpment. Nyoka was the backdrop for many scenes, and if you look carefully, you'll spot the Lone Ranger rock against it too.
What'd they say?
Well, the girls can't understand why a man who's so clever with an intricate machine is so clumsy with chopsticks.
Tell them a plane only has one stick.
Oh.
The cliff got its name from the classic 1942 Republic serial Perils of Nyoka. Here, Kay Aldridge as Nyoka the Jungle Girl is menaced by Satan the gorilla. On the cliff, Kay is doubled by the renowned stunt specialist David Sharp. Republic came here again and again, forever fixating Nyoka Cliff as the cliff in the word cliffhanger. Week after week, thrilling climax after thrilling climax took place here as heroes and villains succumbed to the force of gravity from atop this block of stone.
Drop your gun. Where's Graber?
In addition to the serials, feature films atop the cliff brought many classic stars to the same spot.
In that direction.
That's way dangerous.
Yes, I know. I just saw Larson, what the ants left of him.
Yanni! Yanni!
Commander. There ain't no Japs here. Jap!
One of the most unique things to fall from Nyoka was the Japanese tank pushed off by the fighting Seabees.
That'll teach him to monkey with construction, man.
Running along the base of Nyoka Cliff was a winding stagecoach road, the trail of many chases and establishing shots of wagons and horses on the move. Often the view of the road was from the opposite side of the valley, looking down on it from the Garden of the Gods. Looking south along the road as it rises up out of the valley, the camera saw a wide view of Nyoka Cliff and the San Fernando Valley beyond. This view was frequently used as the background for a film's opening titles.
Everywhere the tale of Tennessee is told. He don't love just one gal, you will find. He loves them all because he's kind. Yes, he's got a great big heart.
The wide view of Nyoka Cliff and the surrounding vista got special attention in John Ford's classic social drama, The Grapes of Wrath.
Ma! Grandma, look!
This shot gave special glory to the Iverson Ranch, for it portrayed the landscape as the symbol of life and prosperity to the weary immigrants of the Dust Bowl.
There she is! I never knowed there was anything like her.
Will you look at her?
Gather round me, children, and I'll talk.
Not far from Nyoka Cliff and beneath the late afternoon shadows of the Garden of the Gods, another rocky feature reflects the distant echoes of movie history. It is called The Wall.
Oh, the Martin and his boys, they were reckless mountain boys, and they stood up and they do when they meet.
Oh, the hatchet sure was.
Gene Autry's B-Westerns created an almost surrealistic blend of the cowboy myth and modern-day settings. He took an even bolder step in 1936 by filming a story that revealed the secrets of the movie-making process itself. But he gave us a glimpse of what shooting a Western in Iverson might have really looked like.
Ready, Ford?
Behind Gene is Crown Rock. It marks a break in a long sandstone wall. Seen from a wider angle, this is Crown Rock and the southern part of the wall containing the overhanging Potato Rock. In 1932, Tarzan and Jane left the elephant graveyard by following a trail alongside this wall. The wall runs from north to south and contains several important features. At the south end of the wall is Three Ages Rock. Moving northward along the wall, you come to Potato Rock. Moving further brings us to the break in the wall at Crown Rock. Moving all the way toward the north end brings us to the entrance of the archway. Although not clear in this freeze frame, there is a break in the wall here which, when seen from another angle, became the gateway to many a secret hideout and hidden canyon. This arch was most frequently seen from this northern entrance.
Oh, nice now.
Backing away from the wall, it can be seen in the context of the whole landscape, with Mount Chatsworth on the horizon. This area was frequently transformed by the building of major sets. One of the best was built in 1935 for Paramount's Lives of a Bengal Lancer.
Trying to be funny?
No, I'm not trying to be funny.
Behind our stars in the upper part of the frame is Potato Rock.
If I look and act like the rest of these merchants, set up shop, sell a few doodads while we take a look around.
Crown Rock formed a bastion in the wall of the fort and was the focal point for the battle at the climax of the film. Gary Cooper wielded the machine gun from next to the rock, and a moment later, a stuntman climbs and leaps from Crown Rock atop the villain. Just a year after Bengal Lancers, Shirley Temple visited Crown Rock and the Wall at exactly the same spot. Errol Flynn came to the ranch in 1936 and filmed a whole sequence at the Wall, stretching action from Potato Rock all the way to the arch.
Now ride off down there and drag this bush behind us, you understand? Try and raise enough dust to make them think half the British Army is coming up to relieve us. Hurry!
In 1936 also brought the first outdoor Technicolor feature film to Iverson, and once again Crown Rock became a backdrop for the set. For the first time, filmgoers could see the sandstone reproduced in vivid color. And we got to see Henry Fonda deck Fred McMurray below the potato.
No? Well, you try and stop me. You're looking for trouble, Mr. Hale. The mountains is full of it.
Here the wall has been incorporated into a glass painting of a temple. You can spot both the potato and Crown Rock in this composite image. Crown Rock and the Wall appeared again and again over the years, proving their usefulness to one filmmaker after another. This unique use of the setting was made by special effects and stop-motion master Ray Harryhausen. The Wall and Crown Rock were even once portrayed as an alien landscape, visited by astronauts Curly, Larry, and Moe.
We're going to explore. Here, lock the ship. Wait a minute. I'd better do it myself. Jump! Don't move back! Jump!
One of the largest sets built along the Wall was the oil depot built in front of Crown Rock for fighting sea bees. Shots of the Wall and Crown Rock also were made for back projection behind sets in the studio.
task force? Yes. There's a carrier, a couple of cruisers, and 3 transports coming in. You're here to see that this depot gets finished. Defend it if you have to, but get the job done. Yes, sir.
Perhaps the most dramatic moment to occur at the wall was one of those rare movie moments when John Wayne bit the dust, and a huge fireball detonated right next to Crown Rock. The chase is the quintessential element in the action melodrama. No respectable cowboy movie could exist without one. To create the chase, the filmmakers needed, among other things, a long stretch of smooth road running alongside the action for the camera car to drive on. In movie parlance, these shots were called running inserts or just inserts.
Movie cowboy. Why don't the darn digits look where they're going?
Movies?
Gee, that was pretty close. Is everybody all right?
Oh, yes. We're just fine, thank you. Say, you're not Roy Rogers.
That's right, ma'am.
Iverson had one special roadway groomed for filming chase scenes. A dirt road, 300 yards long and on a slight incline, ran parallel to the dusty chase trails and through a grove of oak trees. The backdrop was a long, rocky ridge marked with various stone slabs and buttresses. The road was so smooth that even aircraft occasionally landed and took off on it. The Iverson family kept the road in top shape, and for years the movie companies, especially Republic with its western stars, made daily visits common. Back and forth would run the camera car and actors, resulting in an amusing repetition of several features, particularly the pointed block of stone at the crest of the ridge, and the large molar-shaped rock in the middle ground. A lot of hooves, wagon wheels, cars, trucks, and even airplanes made ruts in this trail, and on it a cavalcade of stars felt wind in their hair.
That was swell, Gene. We got some great stuff. Are you all right? Everything's 100%.
That's what he thinks.
Sooner or later, every director who came to the Iverson Ranch ended up shooting at the Garden of the Gods. Who could pass up the beauty of those two towers of stone? The narrow pinnacle on the left, and the massive Indian head or sphinx on the right. The gateway formed by these towers is a familiar and friendly sight to the fans of the golden age of cinema. Films of all types came to the Garden of the Gods. Sometimes it was just for a few pickup shots. Other times whole sequences and elaborate sets would be created there. Probably no other spot on the ranch was more popular. Truly, a legacy of film moments was witnessed by these mute sandstone boulders. westerns and jungle pictures certainly dominated the Garden of the Gods, but crime dramas would often find themselves there as well.
Make for the rocks!
This thing only holds 6. I should have left you in Tower Khan.
Comedy also found its way to the Garden. Naturally, Buster Keaton saw an opportunity for a hair-raising comic stunt. In 1927, the newly formed comedy team Laurel and Hardy shot several scenes for Flying Elephants at the base of the East Pinnacle. This film paired them up, but as adversaries. Right after this film, they joined to create the established comic partnership that endured them to millions of fans. Years later, the comic duo returned to nearly the same spot to shoot the famous laundry scene in Flying Deuces. The garden would find itself redefined to any part of worldwide geography.
There is the entrance to Malachi Pass. It's taken us a month to get Sirinath and his tribe bottled up in there. And they've pretty well shot us to pieces.
Come on, get this junk out of the road.
With the Japanese so close, what do you think we better do?
Take that road.
Yes?
Then afterwards do what he says. What's that for? That's a signal that the enemy has been sighted.
Very much.
In 1191 Anno Domini, the Knights of the Third Crusade rode towards Jerusalem, led by King Richard I of England. Richard of the Lion Heart, a man whose past was filled with deeds of valor, and who now was pledged by religious vow to win back the Holy Land from Saladin. Sultan of the 1,000 tribes of Araby, master of the arts of desert warfare, genius of the methods of swift entrapment.
Occasionally, a major star like Judy Garland in a major production would end up shooting here for a day or two. The addition of a few cactus and flowers could make the Garden of the Gods Arizona in springtime.
Lose something, Miss Bradley?
Oh, Mr. Trent. Do you mind if I come down?
So though it may be bad advice, I guess I'll have to string along until you prove my intuition can be wrong.
My intuition goes like this. I'm playing poker with a bunch, and all at once I get a hunch. That's intuition. I'm playing aces back to back, and I can see a pair of kings. But if there's one more of those things, what's my position?
Well, if you get the cards, then you should bet the cards. At least that's what I've always heard.
Hog tracks, Yeller. Get 'em, boy.
The lists of productions that shot in the vicinity of the garden seems to keep growing the further one looks. The rocks were the haven for the wild boars that attacked the heroic dog in Walt Disney's Old Yeller. The area was also Zorro's secret corral, where his swift and powerful black steed, Coronado, was hidden.
I brought you out here to meet a third member, and a lie. His name is Tornado. An old shepherd has been keeping him for me. He was a colt when I left. Tornado. Carrot. Here, I have a carrot for you. Here.
It was also the spot where Spinnin' Marty cornered the wild stallion. Television shows eventually became the most frequent and final visitors to the Garden of the Gods. Dozens of the Western series of the 1950s and 60s made their required pilgrimage to this rocky mecca of the cowboy universe.
Now you can have everything you want.
Including you?
Even a future president of the United States found himself riding into the sunset at Garden of the Gods. There was one particular milestone in the history of cinema that took place between these piles of sandstone. The redemption of an actor who for 10 years had toiled ceaselessly in the low-budget Western, until one day he stood between these rock pillars and hailed a stagecoach. This man needs no introduction.
Hold it!
Whoa, steady, ho, ho.
It was this film, John Ford's Stagecoach, that gave a rebirth to not only the Western as mature American mythology, but to John Wayne as the undisputed icon of that folklore.
Hey, look, it's Ringo. Yeah. Hello, kid.
Hello, Curly.
The close-ups of John Wayne for this scene were done against a backdrop in the studio, but the wide shots of him in the stagecoach took place right in the gateway of the Garden of the Gods, on the exact spot where the Lone Ranger galloped through at the tail of every TV episode.
Going to Lordsburg? I figured you'd be there by this time.
No. Lame horse. Well, it looks like you've got another passenger.
Yeah. I'll take the Winchester.
You may need me in this Winchester, Curly. Saw a ranch house burning last night.
You don't understand, kid. You're under arrest.
Curly?
Everything all right, Marshal? Everything's all right, Lieutenant.
Hope I ain't crowding you folks tonight.
The more the merrier.
John Wayne was getting on board for more than just a wagon ride. Whether he was in chaps or khakis, the Duke represented true manhood to a generation of moviegoers, and more than once found himself marching through the Garden of the Gods. But John Wayne was not alone. He was but one of a roll call of heroes to pass through these stone portals.
So rides again into the night, riding along, singing a song, for who lives he takes then he gives, happy and gay, singing away. I laugh at life through storm and strife. With mighty grip I crack my whip. With courage full like knights of old, frolicking on into the dawn. Ye men of heart, all rides again, riding along, singing a song.
Attention!
There is one other unique area on the Iverson Ranch. Not as picturesque as Garden of the Gods or Noyoka Cliff, the Indian Hills area offered the only large open space for building large sets. Surrounded by a wall of rocks and an adjacent plateau, Indian Hills was ideal for the construction of outposts and towns, such as the village built by John Ford for Shirley Temple in 1936. 6 years later, the same spot will be the site of the Nazi graveyard for one of the most exciting cliffhanger endings for any Republic serial. If one wanders into the rocks surrounding the Indian Hills Flats, you arrive at Cave Rocks, where numerous entrances to the dark and forbidden lay. Notice the large overhanging massif called Hook Rock. Seen from the other side, Hook Rock marked a trail in and out of Indian Hills where the heroes frequently rode. The traffic of wagons and horses coming down the trail past Hook Rock found a destination. What started out as a small roadside outpost grew to a respectable western town, thanks to Gary Cooper, who produced Along Came Jones in 1945 and built a town to go with it.
And every pretty girl that come along take a bite out of me. Oh, round and around, oh, Joe Clark.
The collection of buildings and facades built by Cooper was added to and remodeled over the years. It was one of the more realistic and substantial-looking Western town sets. One of the trails leaving the town goes past another unique rock formation, Mushroom Rock. This disc of stone, perched atop a big square boulder and garnished with a tree, stood by as horses, heroes, and vehicles raced by. Seen from another angle, Mushroom Rock marked a trail which led from the flats up to what I consider one of the sacred sites on the Iverson Ranch. Following the Lone Ranger back up the trail will take us there. The trail past Mushroom Rock led to a plateau from which sprouted a number of isolated boulders and walls. I call this area Silverland. Here, one of my most favorite movie moments of childhood took place. A scene simplistic and pure in heroic value, and heavy with symbols of righteousness.
The Lone Ranger and Tonto hear sounds of a furious battle. Beyond the rocks in a small glen, they catch a glimpse of a huge buffalo about to gore the life out of a fallen horse. Quickly, the Lone Ranger reaches for his gun.
You hit him, Kimosabe.
I hope it was soon enough, Tonto. Tonto, get some rags from the supplies and bring the canteen.
Me do.
So, in an instant, the Lone Ranger has made a momentous decision, for he has recognized the sterling qualities of the animal he has saved. For some time, the masked man and the Indian camp beside the wounded horse, tending his battle hurts and caring for him as best they know how. Now, human hands have done all they can to help nature in healing the animal's wounds. Can the wild stallion rise? Gently, the masked man coaxes the horse. Easy. Easy, big fellow. Come on your feet. Come on, boy. Come on, boy. Easy, big fellow. Easy.
Me get bridle and lariat. Him run away.
No. Wait, Tonto. I'd like that horse more than anything in the world. But if he wants to go, he should be free.
Him a beauty. Like mountain with snow. Silver white.
Silver. That would be a name for him. Here, Silver. Come back, big fellow. Run, Silver. Come back, big fellow. Come on, Silver.
Me get bridle now. Him come back.
No, he wouldn't take a bit. I'll use a hackamore for the time being. Won't be as strange to his head as a bridle. There, Silver. You only knew how we need you. Oh, boy. Oh, big fellow. Steady. We're going to do a lot of riding together. We're going to be pals, aren't we, Silver?
This scene is from a lost world of cinema. From a time when a whole value system of goodness, manly responsibility, and righteous purpose was exhibited in all its glory. Where the sparkling sunlight and timeless rocks symbolize the virtues of eternal value, which even today's narrow, dark visions of cinema cannot bury. Now, one of the amazing things about the Iverson Ranch is how it's changed. A lot has happened in the past 70 years. In the movie, they die with their boots on. This was Errol Flynn in the 7th Cavalry, marching to the Little Bighorn. The columns of cavalry are stretched out on the flats of the Indian Hills area of the ranch. If you went to this exact spot today and put the camera down and filmed, this is what you'd see. A freeway now runs directly through the property, cutting it in half. And the roar of traffic now supersedes the sound of those hoofbeats in the dust. The rocks and gullies now share the warm sunlight with concrete and asphalt. But if you look very carefully and study the rocks, ghosts and shadows of the movies gone past can be seen. Perhaps no other geographical site on the face of the earth has played host to more movie makers than the Iverson Ranch. Today, the property is subdivided, with lots for sale and under construction. Huge luxury homes and condominiums, slowly but surely, are carpeting the site. Many icons are completely erased by construction and landfill. Gone is Bulldog Bluff, that sandy little hill that scores of cowboys and villains tumbled down to bring the chase and many a film to its conclusion. A few spots, like Nyoko Cliff and Garden of the Gods, are protected as natural conservancies and have by and large escaped destruction. But gone are the days when a movie company could roam far and wide and aim the camera freely. Much of a legacy is buried and gone forever. The old films are gone, and with them, the attached value system that sustained a more hopeful and God-fearing world. I had the fantastic opportunity of eventually shooting a movie at the Iverson Ranch. The film was an IMAX documentary about special effects. Producer Laurel Ladovich had a brilliant idea of shooting at Garden of the Gods. We dramatized a scene derived from the movie Jumanji, in which a great white hunter is chasing a lion, supposedly in Africa. Turned out that I got to play the great white hunter, mainly because we didn't have in our budget the ability to hire any actor, and I fit the costume.
What a smile, Tom, what a smile.
I was required to wear a somewhat humorous blonde wig. And it seemed appropriate to put me in costume, in khaki, in a pith helmet, hand me a rifle and say, Ben, go run around the Iverson Ranch and play make-believe. It was a very strange moment because we did a scene atop the Nyoko Cliff, and to get up to that cliff from where the cars were parked, you have to hike around the back side of it and up a lonely trail. And so there was about a 10-minute period where I was just walking alone, surrounded by these rocks of history, surrounded by the ghosts. was stepping out onto a rock where Linda Sterling, Dave Sharp, John Wayne, and Gary Cooper had plied their trade. What footsteps to follow. I was momentarily isolated from real life and filled with warm satisfaction as I touched again with my youth. I was back in an innocent world, feeling peace, timelessness, and a childhood immortality. From hero to bald nerd. 30 seconds.
This is from young macho hunk to seasoned director. That's think of it that way. Right. In fact, a lot of salt and pepper.
Like most fantasies, they are valuable only in brief doses, just enough to restore hope and balance off the rough edges that come with everyday reality.
Oh, this is attractive. All right. Very. Okay. All right, go for it. Yay, Ben!
This location was a world of make-believe. And it's a fascinating sensation to actually go there and wander about. It feels like you're surrounded by ghosts. It's a spooky sensation, but it's also thrilling at the same time because it brings you in touch with what was only in your imagination, and it takes on a physical form. And for a brief moment, you can find yourself part of that world. You've escaped into your daydreams.
One Ranger, Tonto! Wait for me!